A taste of danger. Ethan Voss leaned back in his chair at Galactic Delicacies, one of the most prestigious restaurants in the Orient sector. The soft glow of bioluminescent plants illuminated the room, casting an ethereal light over the diverse clientele. Aliens of various shapes and sizes mingled with humans in a cacophony of languages and laughter. Tonight was meant to be a celebration. He had just completed a particularly lucrative bounty hunting contract that had filled his pockets with credits. As he scanned the holographic menu projected before him, his stomach grumbled in anticipation. After years of chasing down criminals across the galaxy, he had developed a taste for the finer things in life, especially when it came to food. With a smirk on his face, he decided on something daring. "I'll have the rare steak," he said confidently to the waiter, an elegant being with shimmering skin and multiple arms that gracefully maneuvered through various menus. "An excellent choice, sir," the waiter replied with what seemed like a smile, though it was hard to tell with alien facial features. "Would you prefer it prepared traditionally or live?" Ethan raised an eyebrow at that last option, but shrugged it off as part of the restaurant's exotic charm. Traditional is fine. As he waited for his meal, he took a moment to appreciate his surroundings. The luxurious decor, the exquisite aromas wafting through the air, and the symphony of clinking glasses and soft chatter surrounding him. He felt at ease here, despite his usual instinct to remain vigilant. Old habits die hard for someone in his line of work. When the waiter returned moments later, however, Ethan's relaxed demeanor shattered into disbelief. Instead of a plate bearing a succulent steak, two imposing security guards flanked a woman with striking features, a light green complexion adorned with intricate markings that glimmered under the restaurant's lights. "Your fresh serving, sir," one of the guards announced proudly as they escorted her forward on chains that clinked ominously with each step. Ethan's heart raced as he processed what was happening. This was no ordinary meal, but rather an alien being presented as food, a living creature meant for consumption. Her eyes met his, filled with terror and desperation, and he felt an instinctive urge to protect her rise within him. "Please, don't eat me," she whispered softly, her voice trembling as she glanced around nervously. Ethan leaned closer to her, maintaining his composure despite his internal turmoil. "I'm not going to eat you," he assured her firmly but quietly. "Just stay calm and follow my lead." "My name is Lyra," she replied softly as she shifted nervously in her chains. "Ethan," he said gently while discreetly assessing their surroundings for any potential escape routes or threats. There were guards stationed at all exits and surveillance cameras monitoring every corner. This was not going to be easy. The waiter returned with gleaming knives and tools meant for preparation. Ethan could feel anger bubbling within him at this grotesque display of power over another being's life. "I prefer to handle this differently," Ethan said smoothly while pulling out his credit chip as if examining his meal choices instead of plotting an escape. The waiter's eyes widened at the sight of the chip. The amount displayed would certainly cover any policy concerns regarding dining in-house only. "Of course, sir. Will you require transport assistance?" The waiter bowed slightly, still oblivious to Ethan's true intentions. "No need for that," Ethan replied coolly as he helped Lyra stand up from her chair while keeping up appearances as if nothing was amiss. With his hand resting possessively on her shoulder, a gesture meant both to reassure her and assert dominance, he led Lyra toward the exit while maintaining an air of nonchalance despite their precarious situation. As they stepped outside into the bustling streets of Orion City, under neon lights flickering above them like stars fallen from grace, Lyra turned to him with wide eyes, filled with gratitude mingled with fear. You really saved me," she asked incredulously. "You're safe now," Ethan replied firmly as they approached his parked speeder, a sleek vehicle equipped for quick escapes through crowded streets. Once inside, he quickly released her chains using a small multi-tool he kept hidden under his seat, while keeping an eye out for any pursuing guards who might have noticed their departure. Lyra rubbed her wrists where the chains had chafed against her skin, Relief washed over her features as she realized she was free from immediate danger. "Thank you so much. I thought I was done for." "You're not out of danger yet," Ethan cautioned as he activated the speeder's engines and pulled away from the curb with practiced ease. "The syndicate won't take kindly to losing one of their dishes." Lyra glanced at him nervously as they sped through traffic, her ethereal beauty contrasting sharply against the harsh realities of their situation. But there was something about Ethan that made her feel safer than she had in days. "You seem surprisingly calm for someone who just escaped being served as dinner," he remarked playfully while weaving through lanes filled with other vehicles racing toward their destinations. Lyra chuckled nervously despite herself. It felt good to laugh after everything she'd endured during her captivity. "Trust me, I'm screaming internally right now." Ethan smirked at her response but remained focused on navigating through bustling streets filled with pedestrians oblivious to their plight. As they approached a quieter section away from prying eyes, he glanced back at Lyra again. Her vibrant green skin glowed softly under streetlights illuminating their path ahead. "So how did you end up on tonight's menu?" he asked curiously while keeping one eye on rearview sensors monitoring potential threats behind them. She hesitated before answering, a shadow crossing over her features momentarily before she spoke again with quiet determination. "I was part of an entertainment troupe on Nova Prime until I caught their attention. They offered me what seemed like a legitimate contract, but ended up capturing me instead." Ethan clenched his jaw at hearing this. Anger flared within him toward those who preyed upon innocent beings like Lyra simply for profit or pleasure. He knew all too well how ruthless organizations could be when greed drove them forward without conscience or care for others' lives. "Those bastards will pay for what they've done," he muttered under his breath while adjusting speed settings on their speeder, his mind already racing ahead toward possible plans for revenge against those who dared threaten someone so precious as Lyra had proven herself to be already just by existing beyond mere objectification imposed upon her by others' whims. As they continued racing away from danger into uncharted territory, filled only by hope blossoming between two unlikely allies forged amidst chaos surrounding them both now, their destinies intertwined forevermore, it became clear that this night would mark only just beginning rather than end. The escape plan. Ethan and Lyra sat in the dimly lit hideout, the faint hum of machinery surrounding them as Chris Voss focused intently on the holographic display in front of him. The room was filled with an array of high-tech equipment, a stark contrast to the chaos they had narrowly escaped from just hours earlier. Lyra, still processing the harrowing experience of being served as a meal, watched Chris with a mix of admiration and curiosity. "What's the plan now?" Lyra asked, her voice steady but laced with uncertainty. She was still reeling from the shock of her near fate, and the adrenaline was beginning to fade, leaving her feeling vulnerable. Chris turned to her, his expression serious yet reassuring. "First, we need to lay low for a while. The syndicate will be looking for you, and me, after our little stunt at the restaurant. Then we figure out how to dismantle their operation and make sure no one else ends up on their menu." Lyra nodded, feeling a sense of determination rising within her. "I want to help. I can't just sit here while they continue their operations." Chris raised an eyebrow, impressed by her resolve. "You're brave, but this isn't just about you anymore. It's about stopping them from doing this to anyone else." He pulled up a map of Orion City on the holographic interface, highlighting several locations marked with red dots. These are known syndicate hideouts and operations, places where they might be holding other captives or conducting experiments. Lyra leaned closer, studying the map intently. "What if we infiltrate one of these locations? We could gather evidence or free anyone else they've taken." Chris considered her suggestion carefully. "That's risky. We need intel first, something that can help us plan our approach without getting caught." As they strategized, Chris's fingers danced over the controls, pulling up surveillance footage from various locations around the city. He paused at one clip showing a heavily guarded facility on the outskirts of town, a warehouse that seemed to be bustling with activity. "This is their main base," he said, pointing at the screen. "It's where they likely conduct most of their operations. If we can get inside and gather evidence of what they're doing, we can expose them." Lyra's heart raced at the thought of confronting such danger again, but she felt an undeniable pull to act. "How do we get in?" Chris leaned back in his chair, contemplating their options. "We'll need disguises and a distraction to draw attention away from us while we sneak inside." "Disguises?" Lyra echoed, intrigued by the idea. "Yeah," Chris replied with a smirk. "I have some contacts who can help us acquire what we need, clothes that will allow us to blend in with their staff." He paused for a moment before adding, "and maybe some tech to bypass their security systems." Lyra felt a surge of excitement at the prospect of taking action, rather than waiting passively for things to unfold. "Let's do it then. I'm ready." Chris smiled at her enthusiasm, but quickly tempered it with caution. "We have to be smart about this. The Syndicate is ruthless. They won't hesitate to kill if they feel threatened." She nodded solemnly, understanding the stakes involved all too well now. After gathering supplies from Chris's well-stocked hideout, everything from disguises to hacking tools, they prepared for their first mission together, infiltrating the Syndicate's warehouse under cover of night. As darkness enveloped Orion City, Ethan and Lyra donned their disguises, simple uniforms that would allow them to blend in among the Syndicate's workers. Lyra looked at herself in the mirror. She barely recognized the reflection staring back at her, a far cry from the exotic dancer she had once been. "You look great," Chris said encouragingly as he adjusted his own outfit, a dark jumpsuit that fit snugly against his muscular frame. "Thanks," Lyra replied softly, feeling both nervous and empowered by this new identity she was taking on. They stepped outside into the cool night air, moving swiftly through dimly lit streets toward their destination. As they approached the warehouse, Chris activated a small device that projected a holographic map of the area onto his wrist. "Okay," he said quietly as they neared their target. "There are 2 guards stationed at the entrance and more inside patrolling various sections. We'll need to create a diversion to draw them away from the main entrance." Lyra nodded, her heart pounding in anticipation of what lay ahead. "What do you have in mind?" Chris grinned mischievously as he pulled out a small gadget resembling a grenade, but with blinking lights instead of a pin. "This little beauty is an EMP device I modified. It should disable their security systems temporarily." "Will it work?" Lyra asked skeptically. "It better," Chris replied with confidence as he activated it and tossed it toward a nearby alleyway, just out of sight from the guards. The device detonated with a soft whirring sound followed by an immediate blackout in nearby streetlights, the perfect distraction. "Now," Chris urged as they dashed toward the entrance while guards rushed toward the commotion in confusion. Once inside, they moved quickly through dimly lit corridors, lined with crates filled with unknown contents, most likely supplies for their horrific operations. "This way," Chris whispered urgently as he led Lyra deeper into the facility. They navigated through narrow hallways until they reached an unmarked door at the end of one corridor. Chris pulled out his hacking tool and began working on overriding its lock mechanism. Come on," he muttered under his breath as he focused intently on his task. With one final click, the door swung open, revealing a large room filled with advanced equipment. Computers displaying various data streams and monitors showing live feeds from different parts of the facility. Lyra stepped inside cautiously, her eyes widened at what she saw. The walls adorned with images depicting horrific experiments conducted on sentient beings like herself. "This is it," Chris said grimly as he began downloading files from one of the computers while keeping an eye on their surroundings for any sign of trouble. Lyra felt anger swell within her as she looked around. This was where lives were being destroyed for profit, a reality she had narrowly escaped, but now needed to confront head-on. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, red lights flashing ominously as security protocols kicked in around them. "We've been made," Chris shouted as he quickly finished downloading crucial files onto a portable drive before stuffing it into his pocket. "Time to go," Lyra exclaimed as she grabbed his arm and pulled him toward another exit just as guards began pouring into the room behind them. They sprinted down hallways filled with chaos. Workers scrambled in panic while armed guards shouted orders through their comms devices trying to regain control over the situation. As they turned another corner, Lyra spotted an emergency exit sign glowing brightly ahead, a beacon of hope amidst turmoil surrounding them both now. "There," she pointed urgently as they raced toward it just as gunfire erupted behind them, the sound echoing through metal corridors like thunderclaps reverberating off steel walls closing in around them both now. Bursting through the emergency exit door into an alleyway outside, Ethan and Lyra stumbled into darkness beyond, the cool night air hitting them like a wave after being trapped within that nightmare scenario, moments before now fading into memory behind them both slowly but surely. "We made it," Lyra gasped breathlessly as they paused momentarily, catching their breath. Adrenaline coursing through their veins, still alive despite everything threatening to consume them both entirely moments earlier now fading away slowly but surely. Chris glanced back toward where they'd come from. Sirens blared loudly signaling pursuit would soon follow if they didn't move quickly enough now. "Let's keep going," he urged firmly, taking Lyra's hand, leading her forward into shadows beyond, illuminated only by flickering streetlights casting eerie patterns across pavement below. As they navigated through winding alleys filled with debris left behind by abandoned structures long forgotten beneath layers upon layers accumulated over years gone past now. "What's next?" Lyra asked curiously, glancing sideways toward him. Determination shining bright within those deep blue eyes, reflecting strength forged amidst adversity faced together already time after time again. "We regroup," Chris replied decisively, leading them deeper into unfamiliar territory, filled only by uncertainty laying ahead, waiting patiently just beyond reach still. "Then we figure out how to take down those bastards once and for all," he added fiercely, igniting fire within both hearts beating strong beneath skin, tightly woven together, despite everything threatening separation, looming ever closer each passing moment. Unlikely allies. The atmosphere in Chris's safe house was tense, charged with the urgency of their situation. Chris stared at the screen displaying the encrypted messages, his mind racing as he tried to piece together the implications of what they had discovered. Lyra, now dressed in a borrowed flight suit that accentuated her features, stood beside him, her expression a mixture of fear and determination. "This Project Harvest, it's more than just a menu," Chris muttered, his fingers flying over the console as he accessed more files. "They're experimenting on beings like you to create something horrific." Lyra shivered at the thought. "They're treating sentient beings as commodities. We have to stop them." Chris nodded, his jaw set in grim determination. "We will. But we need help. We can't take on the Syndicate alone, especially if they have connections to someone like Commissioner Calvax." "Who can we trust?" Lyra asked, her brow furrowed in concern. "I know someone," Chris replied, glancing at her with a hint of hope. "A hacker named Jax. He's been a thorn in the Syndicate's side for years. If anyone can help us navigate their systems and expose what they're doing, it's him." Lyra felt a flicker of optimism at the thought of enlisting an ally. "Let's go find him then." After gathering essential supplies and ensuring their safe house was secure, Chris and Lyra climbed into his speeder once more. The cityscape of New Singapore unfolded before them, a sprawling metropolis illuminated by neon lights and holographic advertisements that flickered in the night. As they sped through the streets, Lyra couldn't help but feel a sense of exhilaration mixed with anxiety. The danger they faced was palpable, but so was the thrill of taking action against their oppressors. "Jax operates in the lower levels of the city," Chris explained as he navigated through traffic. "It's not the safest place, but he knows how to keep hidden from Syndicate eyes." "Sounds like my kind of guy," Lyra replied with a half smile, trying to lighten the mood. When they arrived at an unassuming entrance marked only by a flickering sign that read Tech Haven, Chris parked the speeder and led Lyra inside. The dimly lit room was filled with an array of screens displaying streams of data and flashing alerts. A few scattered individuals were hunched over terminals, engrossed in their work. "Jax," Chris called out as he spotted a figure with messy hair and goggles perched atop his head. The young man turned around, his expression shifting from surprise to recognition as he approached them. "Chris, what brings you here? And who's this?" "This is Lyra," Chris introduced her quickly. "We need your help." Jax raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Help with what? You look like you've been through hell." Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady despite her nerves. "We escaped from the Crimson Syndicate. They're running Project Harvest, experimenting on sentient beings for profit." Jax's expression darkened as he processed her words. "That's worse than I thought. They'd been expanding their operations for months now." He glanced at Chris with concern. "You're sure you want to take them on? They won't hesitate to kill anyone who gets in their way." Chris crossed his arms defiantly. "I didn't come this far to back down now. We need evidence, something that will expose them for what they are." "All right," Jax said after a moment's hesitation. "I can help you infiltrate their systems and gather intel on Project Harvest." He gestured for them to follow him deeper into Tech Haven. As they walked through the maze of equipment and technology, Jax explained his plan. "I've been monitoring Syndicate communications for a while now. I might have access codes that could get us into one of their facilities." "Great," Chris said, feeling a surge of hope. "But it won't be easy," Jax warned as they reached a terminal cluttered with wires and devices. "Their security is top-notch. We'll need to move quickly and quietly." Lyra felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as she watched Jax work his magic on the console, tapping away furiously at keys while pulling up blueprints and security protocols for one of the Syndicate's main laboratories. "This is it," Jax said after several minutes of intense concentration, pulling up schematics on the screen that displayed various sections of the facility, including security checkpoints and guard rotations. Chris leaned closer to study the layout. "We'll need disguises again if we're going to get in undetected." "I can help with that," Jax replied confidently as he rummaged through a nearby drawer, filled with various gadgets and costumes designed for infiltration. After gathering disguises that would allow them to pass as Syndicate employees, complete with badges and uniforms, they finalized their plan. "Once we're inside," Jax explained, "we'll split up to cover more ground. I'll work on accessing their mainframe while you two gather evidence or free any captives you find." Lyra felt adrenaline coursing through her veins as she nodded in agreement. "Let's do this." With their plans set in motion, Chris, Lyra, and Jax climbed back into the speeder and headed toward the Syndicate facility marked on Jax's map, a stark building looming ominously against the night sky. As they approached their destination, tension filled the air. Every moment felt like it could tip either way, success or failure hanging delicately in balance. "Remember," Chris said firmly as they parked nearby and donned their disguises, "stay focused and stick together until we're inside." Lyra took a deep breath to steady herself. She could feel her heart racing with anticipation mixed with fear, but there was no turning back now. They exited the speeder and made their way toward the facility entrance under cover of darkness. Shadows danced around them as they moved swiftly past security cameras positioned strategically along walls, each step bringing them closer to uncovering truths hidden behind locked doors. As they approached an unguarded side entrance, marked by flickering lights overhead illuminating faded warnings about authorized personnel only, Chris glanced back at Lyra reassuringly before pushing open the door leading them into darkness beyond. Inside lay a maze of corridors echoing with distant sounds from machinery humming softly, while fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows across cold concrete walls surrounding them both now. "Let's find those files," Chris whispered urgently, leading Lyra down one corridor, while Jax took another route toward where he believed mainframe access points were located. The quiet intensity enveloped them both like an invisible cloak shielding against dangers, lurking just beyond sight, waiting patiently for unsuspecting prey drawn ever closer by curiosity, igniting flames within hearts beating strong despite everything threatening separation, looming ever closer each passing moment. The confrontation. The atmosphere in Chris's safe house was thick with tension as he and Lyra, now known as Seisha, processed the implications of their findings. Chris's fingers danced across the holographic interface, decoding encrypted messages that revealed the depths of the Syndicate's depravity. Seisha leaned closer, her eyes wide with horror as she absorbed the information. "They're not just serving sentient beings," Chris said, his voice low and filled with anger. "They're experimenting on them, trying to enhance their flavors and make them more desirable for consumption. This is beyond anything I imagined." Seisha shuddered at the thought. "I can't believe they would go this far. It's monstrous." Chris nodded, his jaw clenched tightly. "We need to expose this. But first, we have to confront the Syndicate directly. They won't stop until they silence us." Seisha took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. "What's the plan?" "We'll need to gather more evidence," Chris replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "I have a contact who can help us infiltrate their main facility. If we can get in and download their entire database, we can expose them to the authorities and the public." "Who's your contact?" Seisha asked, intrigued. "Her name is Mira," Chris explained as he began typing furiously on the console to pull up Mira's location. "She's a former Syndicate operative who turned against them. She knows their inner workings and can help us navigate their security systems." "Sounds like we need her on our side," Seisha said, feeling a surge of determination. "Exactly," Chris replied, glancing at her with admiration for her courage. "Let's gear up and head out." After donning tactical gear that Chris had stashed away in his safe house, they set off in his speeder toward Mira's last known location, a rundown bar on the outskirts of New Singapore, known for its shady clientele and hidden secrets. As they approached the bar, Chris parked in a dimly lit alleyway and turned to Seisha. "Stay close and let me do the talking. Mira is cautious. She doesn't trust easily." Seisha nodded, her heart racing with anticipation and fear as they stepped out into the bustling streets filled with patrons from all walks of life. Humans mingling with various alien species under flickering neon signs. The bar was a dive, its exterior worn and uninviting, but Chris pushed through the door with confidence. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and laughter mingled with hushed whispers, an atmosphere that felt both dangerous and exhilarating. Chris scanned the room until his gaze landed on a woman sitting alone in a corner booth, her dark hair framing a face that exuded both beauty and danger. She wore a leather jacket adorned with patches that hinted at her rebellious past. "Mira," Chris called out as he approached her table, Seisha following closely behind. Mira looked up, her sharp green eyes narrowing as she assessed them, both before recognizing Chris. "You've got guts showing up here again," she said coolly. "I need your help," Chris replied without preamble. "It's urgent." Mira leaned back in her seat, crossing her arms as she regarded them both skeptically. "What kind of trouble are you dragging me into this time?" "This isn't just any trouble," Seisha interjected, stepping forward to meet Mira's gaze. "The Crimson Syndicate is running Project Harvest, experimenting on sentient beings for profit." Mira's expression shifted from skepticism to concern as she processed Seisha's words. "Project Harvest? I've heard whispers about it, but thought it was just rumors." "It's real," Chris confirmed grimly. "And we need your expertise to expose them before it's too late." Mira studied Seisha intently before nodding slowly. "All right, I'm in, but you need to understand something. This won't be easy. The Syndicate has eyes everywhere, and if they catch wind of our plan, they won't catch us," Chris interrupted confidently, his resolve unwavering. Mira smirked slightly at his bravado, but recognized the determination in his eyes. Fine then. Let's get started. After discussing their strategy over drinks, carefully choosing words to avoid drawing attention, they devised a plan to infiltrate the syndicate's main facility during a high-profile event where many influential figures would be present. The event will provide us cover, Mira explained as she outlined their approach on a napkin covered in hastily scrawled notes. We'll blend in with guests while I disable security systems from the inside. Chris nodded thoughtfully while glancing at Sasha, who seemed both excited and anxious about their impending mission. What about me? Sasha asked hesitantly. You'll be my backup, Mira replied firmly. If anything goes wrong, or if I'm unable to access certain areas, you'll need to find another way to gather evidence or rescue any captives you come across. Sasha felt a mix of fear and determination wash over her again. This was her chance not only to fight back, but also to save others who might be suffering like she had. Understood, she said resolutely. As they finalized their plans, Chris felt a sense of camaraderie forming between them, a bond forged through shared purpose that transcended their individual struggles against an oppressive force, threatening countless lives across galaxies now. The night of the event arrived quickly. They donned elegant attire suitable for high society. Chris wearing a tailored suit while Sasha slipped into an exquisite dress that accentuated her features beautifully despite its modest design, meant for blending in rather than standing out among elites surrounding them both now. As they arrived at the syndicate facility, a grand building adorned with opulence, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement from attendees mingling under chandeliers shimmering like stars above them all now. Remember your roles, Mira whispered as they stepped through security checkpoints, seamlessly thanks to her connections ensuring smooth passage without raising alarms around any potential threats lurking nearby waiting patiently just beyond sight. Once inside, they split up, Chris moving toward areas where he could gather intel while Mira headed toward security hubs, meant for disabling surveillance systems monitoring every corner within this luxurious facade hiding darkness, beneath surface level waiting patiently just beyond reach still. Sasha found herself wandering through lavish halls, filled with art pieces showcasing various cultures across galaxies, each one telling stories lost over time, now forgotten beneath layers upon layers accumulated over years gone past now. But beneath this beauty lay an unsettling truth. She could feel it deep within her bones, the knowledge that many lives were being sacrificed for profit hidden behind polished surfaces reflecting light dancing across walls surrounding them both now. As she continued deeper into the facility searching for clues or potential captives needing rescue, her heart raced at every sound echoing through halls, filled only by uncertainty laying ahead waiting patiently just beyond reach still. Suddenly she spotted two guards conversing near an unmarked door slightly ajar. Curiosity peaked within her mind, urging caution yet excitement coursing through veins, igniting flames within heart, beating strong despite everything threatening separation looming ever closer each passing moment. She crept closer quietly listening intently hoping for any information regarding Project Harvest or potential captives being held within these walls surrounding them both now. Did you hear about last week? One guard said casually while leaning against wall nearby casually watching surroundings around him, carefully ensuring nothing amiss lurking nearby waiting patiently just beyond sight. Yeah, replied another guard shaking head slightly. Tension evident within voice, betraying underlying fear beneath bravado displayed outwardly still. They say they're ramping up production. Soon there'll be more than just food on the menu. Sasha felt bile rise within throat at hearing those words spoken so casually. These beings treated like mere commodities stripped away dignity leaving nothing but desperation behind now. She needed to act quickly before it was too late. Gathering courage from deep within herself, igniting flames burning bright beneath skin, tightly woven together, despite everything threatening separation looming ever closer each passing moment. With swift movements honed through years spent dancing gracefully amidst chaos surrounding her now, She slipped through doorway, unnoticed by guards engrossed within conversation, unaware danger lurking nearby, waiting patiently just beyond sight still. Inside lay darkness enveloping everything around her like an invisible cloak shielding against dangers lurking just beyond reach, waiting patiently for unsuspecting prey drawn ever closer by curiosity, igniting flames within hearts, beating strong despite everything threatening separation looming ever closer each passing moment. As she stepped further inside, searching desperately for any signs indicating presence of captives needing rescue, her heart raced at every sound echoing through halls filled only by uncertainty laying ahead, waiting patiently just beyond reach still. A new beginning. The atmosphere in Chris's safe house was charged with urgency and determination as he and Seisha prepared for the final confrontation with the Syndicate. The weight of their discoveries about Project Harvest hung heavily in the air, fueling their resolve to put an end to the atrocities committed by those in power. "Are you ready for this?" Chris asked, glancing at Seisha as she adjusted her newly acquired gear, a sleek black jumpsuit that allowed for freedom of movement while still providing some protection. Seisha nodded, her expression a mixture of fear and fierce determination. "I've come too far to back down now. We need to save those who are still trapped and expose the Syndicate for what they are." Chris admired her bravery, feeling a surge of respect for the woman who had once been a victim but was now a warrior standing beside him. "We'll do this together. Remember, we stick to the plan. We gather evidence, free any captives we find, and then we get out." With their plan set in motion, Chris activated the surveillance systems in the safe house to monitor any movements from the Syndicate. "Jax is on standby. He'll be ready to assist us remotely," he explained as he pulled up a map of the Syndicate's main facility. "Let's move," Seisha urged, her voice steady despite the gravity of their mission. As they approached the Syndicate's facility under the cover of darkness, Chris felt his heart race with anticipation. The building loomed before them, its imposing structure a stark reminder of the power it wielded over countless lives. Neon lights flickered ominously around it, casting eerie shadows that danced across the pavement. "Stay close," Chris instructed as they slipped through a side entrance that Mira had helped them access earlier. The air inside was thick with tension, and every sound echoed ominously through the empty corridors. They moved cautiously through the facility, navigating past guards and security cameras with practiced ease. Chris led the way, his instincts honed from years of experience guiding him through dangerous situations. "Over there," Seisha whispered, pointing toward a door marked with a red authorized personnel only sign. "That must lead to their main lab." Chris nodded, feeling a rush of adrenaline as they approached the door. He pulled out his hacking tool and quickly disabled the lock mechanism, pushing the door open just enough for them to slip inside. The lab was filled with advanced technology and equipment, machines humming softly as they processed data and conducted experiments on various life forms held in containment units. Seisha felt her stomach churn at the sight. It was a stark reminder of what she had endured. "We need to find evidence," Chris said firmly as he began accessing one of the terminals, "something that will prove what they're doing here." As he worked quickly to download files and documents detailing Project Harvest, Seisha moved through the lab, her heart racing as she glanced at the containment units lined against the walls. Each one held a different being, some humanoid, others entirely alien, trapped and helpless. "Chris," she called out suddenly, her voice filled with urgency. "There are captives here." He turned away from the terminal, his expression shifting from concentration to concern. "What do you mean?" Seisha pointed toward a unit containing a small alien creature that looked frightened and disoriented. "We have to free them." Chris hesitated for a moment, but then nodded resolutely. "All right, let's get them out." They quickly moved toward the containment unit, Chris working on disabling its security measures, while Seisha reassured the frightened creature inside. "You're safe now. We're here to help you." With a final click, Chris opened the unit, allowing the small alien to stumble out into Seisha's arms. It looked up at her with wide eyes filled with gratitude and fear. "Stay close," she whispered gently as she set it down on its feet. Just then, alarms blared throughout the facility, red lights flashing ominously as security protocols activated around them. "We've been made," Chris shouted as he grabbed Seisha's arm. "We need to move, now." They sprinted through the lab as guards began pouring in from all directions, shouting orders into their comms devices. Chris led Seisha and their new companion through narrow hallways filled with chaos. Workers scrambled in panic while armed guards closed in on their position. "Over here," Seisha shouted as she spotted an emergency exit sign glowing brightly ahead, a beacon of hope amidst turmoil surrounding them both now. They burst through the exit into an alleyway outside just as gunfire erupted behind them, the sound echoing through metal corridors like thunderclaps reverberating off steel walls closing in around them both now. Once outside, they quickly made their way toward Chris's parked speeder, hidden nearby under shadows, cast by towering structures surrounding them both now. "Get in," Chris urged as he helped Seisha into the passenger seat before jumping into his own side. As they lifted off into the neon-lit night sky once more, Seisha turned to their small companion who was trembling slightly beside her, its large eyes reflecting fear mixed with gratitude shining bright beneath surface level, waiting patiently just beyond reach still. "What's your name?" she asked gently. I'm Kiri," it stammered softly, glancing between them both nervously yet hopeful, somehow despite everything threatening separation looming ever closer each passing moment. "Kiri," Chris repeated thoughtfully while piloting their speeder away from danger, lurking just behind them still. "You're safe now," he assured Kiri while glancing back toward where they'd come from. Sirens blared loudly, signaling pursuit would soon follow if they didn't move quickly enough now. As they navigated through winding streets filled with debris left behind by abandoned structures long forgotten beneath layers upon layers accumulated over years gone past now. "We need to regroup," Chris said firmly while keeping an eye on rearview sensors monitoring potential threats behind them both now. "Then we figure out how to take down those bastards once and for all," he added fiercely, igniting fire within both hearts beating strong beneath skin tightly woven together, despite everything threatening separation looming ever closer each passing moment. After losing their pursuers amidst chaotic traffic patterns weaving through city streets, the trio finally arrived at another safe house, located within an unassuming building, nestled between two larger structures looming against starry skies above. "This will be our temporary base until we can figure out our next move," Chris explained while leading Kiri and Seisha inside where advanced surveillance systems awaited monitoring any movements outside, ensuring safety surrounding them both now. As they settled into their new surroundings, Seisha felt hope blooming within her heart, despite everything threatening despair lurking just beyond reach still. "We'll find a way to stop Project Harvest," she promised Kiri, who looked up at her with wide eyes, filled with admiration reflecting strength forged amidst adversity faced together already time after time again. Chris glanced between them both, feeling newfound determination igniting flames burning bright beneath skin, tightly woven together, despite everything threatening separation looming ever closer each passing moment. "We will make sure no one else suffers like you did," he vowed fiercely while stepping closer toward Kiri, reassuringly placing hand gently upon its shoulder, sending warm currents flowing through body, igniting fires burning bright beneath surface level, waiting patiently just beyond reach still. And so began their journey, a mission fueled by hope and courage, a fight against darkness threatening countless lives across galaxies waiting patiently just beyond sight.